Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Good afternoon, everybody. I totally forgot this show. This show does not have a intro. I am welcome to Breaking History. I'm your host, Gordon McCormick. My normal co-host, Matt Ehret, had an emergency to deal with, so he couldn't join us. So we're going to table what we had planned, and I'm just going to do a dive into the news cycle. There's plenty to talk about that I did not get to on Badlands Daily today or on Geopolitics with Ghost yesterday. But welcome to the show. Give me 1 second. I'm just getting my ducks in a row here on want to make sure that we get hit our first ad read. But yeah, how's the chat doing? Thanks for joining. Crazy news cycle, man. I am really excited about this Pirates of the Caribbean bit that Donald Trump's doing. We're going to start with that because there's something happening at the White House right now or this morning that is worth touching on. But first, let's get a word from a sponsor.
What is the Sovereign Alliance? The Sovereign Alliance are a collection of leaders and countries that are aligned not in the vision for their countries, but against a vision that has been thrust upon them. I believe that the Sovereign Alliance is less a battle for something and more a battle against something. They are against globalism, collectivism. They are against the rules-based international order.
Sovereign Alliance, the latest addition to Badlands Rise merch, available now at badlandsmedia.tv/rise.
All right. And yeah, shout out to our friends over at Rise Attire. I wanted to see if I can get this to appear correctly. There we go. I wanted to give a shout out to them because they just launched a new product line. I don't know if I call it a product line, but they launched a new product. If I can get this to load. And it is a design that I actually did 10 years ago. Here it is. The wall design. And I've shared this several times on various shows, and people have gotten a kick out of it and laughed about it. But yeah, you can own now the border wall design on your favorite Badlands or on your favorite Rise Attire product, whether it's a sweatshirt or a t-shirt. And I love that they did a great job designing this because that's my favorite iteration of our logo on the front there, on the chest. And and they added like a little GBPH XOXO at the bottom. So anyway, great people, great company. We always like to support people who support our values, and they come to every single GART. So we become great friends with them. Can't say enough nice things about Rise. I've even done a show with them. Adrian came on the Book of Trump to cover a documentary he made about the fashion industry and the cabal occult elements in there. And he actually just completed part 2 of that. So we're going to have him on soon to discuss part 2. So shout out to Adrian. And Adrian, if you're listening, go ahead and post part 2, the link to part 2 in the chat or in the comments. And I will post the link to the border wall design in the chat. All right. So, and I'm going to do that real quick because if I don't do it right now, I may forget. Link to the border wall design from Rise Attire. Now, so that is live in the comments. All right, let's get to the show. So let's talk about Pirates of the Caribbean and the Pirate King, Donald Trump, because his behavior right now is pretty funny, in my opinion. I think it's cartoonish, and I think he knows exactly what he's doing. This is I even see people in the truth movement kind of falling for this. Like he's actually not kidding when he says this stuff, that he's going to just like start waging war with all these countries, invading all these countries, taking over all the things that he ran against over the past 10 years. He's suddenly just throwing that whole playbook out, and he's just going to be the neocon that every, George Bush and Barack Obama both were. So we did cover this on Badlands Daily. So I know a lot of you are coming over from there, so I don't want to get too repetitive. I did think this clip was funny, and it's worth watching again.
Business went through the roof. You said to Iran this morning that help is on the way for protesters. What did you mean by that? What kind of help?
You're going to have to figure that one out. I'm sorry.
How many people have been killed in Iran?
Nobody's been able to give me an accurate number. I have heard numbers from everything's a lot. One is a lot. But I've heard numbers much lower, and I've heard numbers much higher. We'll be knowing. We're probably going to find out over the next 24 hours. I think it's a lot. It's too many, whatever it is.
Yeah. And so you have the Iran thing happening, as this article that I'm pulling this from points out. This is a Zero Hedge article from Tyler Durden. Most of the U.S. Navy strike group remains in the Caribbean, because remember, we had to go to war with Venezuela, which we didn't actually end up doing. So we had to move the whole USS Abraham strike group, carrier strike group, out of the Mediterranean into the Caribbean. And so we don't have a Navy there to attack Iran. Unfortunately, quote unquote, right? Yeah. While this is happening, you have Trump seizing oil tankers in the Caribbean. And I'm going to pull up that. I love this picture that RT used for that narrative. Let me see if I can get it bigger. There we go. I love this picture that they use. This is a great picture of Trump. It's very sassy. It's a sassy picture of the president, because I can see him making that face and making that gesture as they try to question whether he actually has the authority to just seize vessels on the high seas of the Caribbean and just be the pirate king. And it says he's seeking legal excuses to seize dozens of more oil tankers. And again, I think he's doing all of this to establish a precedent that needs to be addressed about international law. I don't know what that conversation ends up looking like, but I do think that having that conversation as we shift from the unipolar to the multipolar world order is important, because we don't want a one world government system. Calling it international law implies that there is a legal mechanism to enforce that law, and would necessitate, therefore, a world government to enforce whatever the penal repercussions, the punitive damages, the penal repercussions, whatever, from violating said international law dictates. Now, the UN, it's a very gray area that has evolved over the past 70 years, and the UN has kind of served as the vehicle for evolving that. But what's interesting is that the UN, not only is the UN basically losing all of its legitimacy, both narratively, but also literally, because countries are no longer listening to it. They're just doing what they want. They're also losing their funding. And I played a clip I think it was on Friday on my show, of the UN secretary, representative for the Secretary General of the UN, being asked a question by a journalist, like, the U.S. hasn't paid their dues for the UN this year, and under the UN Charter, doesn't that mean they lose their vote on the Security Council? And the guy said, yes, that is what it means. We haven't gotten there yet. We're hoping they'll pay the dues, but yeah, the U.S. could lose its vote. Well, what's interesting about that is that if the U.S. does lose its vote on the Security Council, it's been the one vote holding back a number of things that need to happen, including the two-state solution, like the UN formally recognizing Palestine, which would mean Palestine would become a nation, and then it would be entitled to protections from Israeli aggression, which again is the fact that the UN created Israel in the first place under the 1947 Palestine partition plan, it really puts the UN in this weird bind where right after it was created, it created Israel, and now it's going to challenge that mandate and basically be at war with itself from a legalistic standpoint. So I look forward to that playing out. But getting back to the Pirate King narrative, while Trump is seizing oil tankers in the Caribbean. He's also talking about joking, jesting. I mean, I don't think he's really actually talking about it, but making jokes about installing Marco Rubio as the king of Cuba, or the governor of Cuba. I mean, that would be. I mean, again, not that this is actually going to happen, but him just jesting about it is funny. It says U.S. President Donald Trump has someone in mind to be the next leader of Cuba. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. On Sunday, Trump reposted an image of an X post that jokingly claimed that the top U.S. Diplomat would be made the president of the Caribbean island. With sounds good to me! With exclamation point. Trump responded on Truth Social. Let me pull up that Truth Social post real quick. But again, like, this is all very lighthearted. I don't see this as very serious at all. It's being handled as very serious, right? It's being handled as very, very serious because you kind of have to, because he's the president and he has considerable wartime powers and other executive authorities. Right here. I mean, this is on X too. Like, he's taking snippets from X and he's posting on True Social. Sounds good to me. And this only had 337 views, so it's not like he went out and found some viral post. He found a post that had 337 views, and again, just for the keks, right? So anyway, on top of that, so you have him threatening Iran, but not really explaining how he's going to threaten Iran. You have the seizing ships like a pirate in the Caribbean, joking about appointing Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who has been a part of this Florida neocon Hispanic operation to unseat Nicolas Maduro, among other people. You know, there's a number of governments in Latin America that these neocons from Southern Florida, who are all Hispanic and who all draw from their Hispanic roots, you know, their parents are all immigrants, that kind of thing, that kind of sob story, using the emotion from that sob story to leverage political clout and conduct regime change operations, which I think before they were doing on a much more low-key level. Now it's like Trump has just pulled all this stuff up, put it out front on the marquee, and been like, yeah, of course we're going to overthrow governments all across Latin America. Why wouldn't we do that? Isn't that what we've always done? And nobody, I mean, everybody now is talking about it, but nobody in the establishment is pumping the brakes. And if they are pumping the brakes, they're not doing it hard enough. They're all actually leaning into it and capitalizing on the moment, because Donald Trump is the taste setter. He's the tastemaker for the populist revolt, the populist uprising, the populist revolution in America. And so from their standpoint, these are all regime figures who live in DC inside the Beltway and have an elitist lifestyle that cuts them off from, you know, Main Street America. And so therefore they kind of rely on Trump to set the signal for how they're going to campaign, how they're going to promote themselves and get sound bites for their future campaigns. And so they're leaning into this. They're like, well, Trump's going to take all the flack for this because he's out there being a cartoon character about it. And so because, you know, he's doing this WrestleMania rhetoric, he's going to get all the headlines. We can then come in behind him and actually make it happen, right? And then he'll take the blame for better or worse on it. However, I think that the Trump model here is that he's going to step off the rug at the last minute and they're going to be left holding the bag. And from like a narrative standpoint, and it's just going to blow up in their face. So the third prong of that narrative would be Greenland, right? And so to kind of bring everybody up to speed on what's happening with Greenland, Trump's obviously been talking for the past year, and frankly longer than that, about Greenland becoming part of the United States. I'm not sure if that's a good idea. We can have that debate about, you know, whether we want to add these 60,000 European citizens who all have European values, not American values. Whether that would be a good idea, I'm not sure it would be. But I certainly can see the strategic value of having a geographic outpost like Greenland as part of our sphere of influence. So the net effect, as I showed on Badlands daily. This is from this article, which I can show you the article. It's right here from NDTV World. It's a big problem, Trump's warning after Greenland chooses Denmark. And what it's referring to is it's referring to the Greenland Prime Minister, this guy.
Nu står vi med en geopolitisk krise.
Jens Frederick Nielsen. He says, if we have to choose between the United States and Denmark, we choose Denmark. We choose NATO. We choose Kingdom of Denmark. We choose the EU. And then Trump's response to that is, it's a big problem. The situation is very serious, Greenland's Prime Minister Nielsen said, calling the current threats from the Trump administration to annex the island completely out of line. Amid U.S. President Donald Trump's persistent annexation threats, Greenland categorically ruled out the joining the United States, saying the Arctic territory prefers to be in a union with Denmark. Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederick Nielsen said that given a choice between the United States and Denmark, the island would choose to be part of the European nation, suggesting that the island is putting its independence plans back on the back burner for now. Quote, we are now facing a geopolitical crisis, and if we have to choose between the United States and Denmark here and now, then we choose Denmark. We choose the Greenland we know today, which is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Nielsen said at a joint press conference with Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen. Wait, are they both named Frederiksen? Are they brother and sister? No. It's Jens Frederick Nielsen and Mette Frederiksen. Okay. Greenland PM's remarks come ahead of a high-stakes meeting of Danish and Greenlandic foreign ministers with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance in Washington on Wednesday. The stated aim for the talks is to help diffuse the administration's renewed threats toward Greenland and begin repairing strained ties over the strategically important island. The situation is very serious, Nielsen said, calling the current threats from the Trump administration to annex the island completely out of line. Trump's threats. Donald Trump is demanding to take control of Greenland either through economic means or military force. The U.S. leader responded bluntly when asked about Nielsen's comments and warned that it could create a big problem for the latter. That's their quote. That's their problem. I disagree with him. I don't know who he is. I don't know anything about him, but that's going to be a big problem for him. I actually have that clip. Let's watch that clip because I always enjoy watching Trump bully these people. Let's see. I have that clip on one of these tabs, but I have about 100 tabs open, so it's just easier to, I think, pull it up from X.
Put it on.
Thank you. And the policy question. How much money are you thinking of giving people in Greenland to get them on board with a possible U.S.
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland. And we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay?
I'm gonna let the clip finish. This is from, I think, last week. This might be the meeting he had with the U.S. oil executives on Friday. I'm gonna let the clip finish because the clip I was looking for is a separate clip, but I do have that one. So let's finish this one.
I would like to make a deal, the easy way. But if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. And by the way, I'm a fan of Denmark too. I have to tell you, and they've been very nice to me. I'm a big fan, but the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also, but we need that because if you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers and bigger. There are Russian submarines all over the place. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
All right, so a few things. Number one, like the only way that this rhetoric works, in my opinion, this like really, really cartoonish, like flexing on Russia and China, it only works if Trump is working in cahoots with Putin and Xi. That's how you avoid escalatory rhetoric actually becoming a kinetic conflict. That's number one. That's Trumpomania, by the way. His comment about we don't want to have Russia as a neighbor. Well, that's interesting because didn't you just meet Putin in Alaska and there's talk now about building a railroad across Alaska into Russia? Literally, we already are neighbors with Russia through via Alaska, and we're looking at strengthening and building that relationship. So again, that's how there's little like vignettes that Trump puts out that you have to pull the vignettes out to kind of make sense of what he's doing here. Because he's clearly baiting people into chomping down on this, clamping down on it, and running with it. But it's very goofy and it's very funny. The other comment about just because a boat landed there 500 years ago doesn't mean you own the place. That's like a liberal argument that's like the liberals who talk about imperialism and colonization. Like just because the explorers went to the New World 500 years ago doesn't mean that you own the land. That land belongs to the indigenous. It's so funny, like watching him deploy this stuff. How did the reporters respond to that? Because isn't that what these liberal reporters also think? Don't they also think that? I mean, that's a very reasonable statement, I think, objectively speaking. Like, oh, because you landed there on a boat 500 years ago, and you said this place is ours, but you haven't really done anything or invested in it or anything like that. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Here's the actual clip that I was looking for.
Sir, the premier of Greenland said today, we prefer to stay with Denmark. Do you see that as the
Who
final
said
word?
that?
The premier of Greenland.
Well, that's their problem. That's their problem. I disagree with him. I don't know who he is. Don't know anything about him. But that's going to be a big problem for him.
Sir, the premier.
Love that hat, by the way. I need to get one of those hats. That's a great looking hat. Love the hat. Yeah, it's a classic. So now we can cut to the clip I saw of here it is. All right, so here are the Denmark and Greenland officials arriving at the White House. Did he wear a coat and tie this time? Is he wearing a coat and tie? Okay, they are wearing coats and ties. So they're not showing up in hoodies. That's a start. Solid, smart. All right. Is that Caroline Leavitt greeting him? I can't tell. I would assume it is, but it could be anybody. Probably not. Or are these the Greenlanders meeting with the Danes? Is she a Dane? I don't know. My guess is that she's got to be a White House official. Very, very serious. This is a very serious meeting, guys. We are negotiating the invasion of Greenland. I love that Trump's done this. So he's basically gotten so aggressive in this. It's like a foregone conclusion that we're going to invade Greenland. And he's backed this up because he just went into Caracas and kidnapped Nicolas Maduro from his bed, right? And he has ostensibly supported Netanyahu's genocide against the Gaza for the past 3 years, right? So he puts his money where his mouth is. You better not mess with him. He's being dead serious whenever he says something, right? Or is he? I don't know. But that confusion and that chaos is where Trump thrives, because you don't know if you can take him seriously or not. There's part of you that wants to take him seriously because he has done these other things, but then he also has a history of hyperbole. He loves hyperbole. He uses it all the time. But it's a negotiation tactic. So now I think we'll probably get to a negotiated settlement where they ultimately surrender to Trump. And I would like to see an outcome where the Greenlander population remains Europe's problem, not our problem, but we get access to the geographic advantages of Greenland in the form of resources and land for whatever it is we need to use it for, whether it's naval bases, air bases, or just like strategic outposts to explore the Arctic, because the Arctic is definitely something we should be exploring, and we should be mining for resources, right? And Russia and China, by the way, want to do that. And Kirill Dmitriev, the Russian special envoy, economic envoy to the United States, has talked about trilateral endeavors in the Arctic, and that Russia doesn't consider endeavors with the United States and endeavors with China to be separate things. He considers it all to be one trilateral partnership, that we're all going to work together in the Arctic. That was months ago. That was the summertime. So yeah, that is fascinating. Now you have in that quote that I showed this morning, which is this one. After a meeting with Rubio on Monday night, German Foreign Minister Johann Wadefuhl, what is that his name? Is his name Wadefuhl? Because that would be hilarious. Said he is optimistic that Europe can reach a compromise with the U.S. over Greenland. Quote, security in the North Atlantic and the Arctic can only be achieved multilaterally and jointly. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, it's quite a name, said on Tuesday, quote, open questions will be cleared up amicably together according to international law and with joint responsibility for security in the North Atlantic. So there's the application of international law, and we can have a debate at some point, we should, about how legitimate international law is and how it should be dealt with, how it should be administered, whether it should even exist. But those are real questions and debates that should be held, and I'm sure they will be as a result of all this. But what's interesting, I mentioned this on Daily, but I didn't present my sauce because, timing restrictions. Here is an article from yesterday from RT. German businesses sound alarm over record bankruptcies. High energy prices, bureaucracy, and taxes are said to be key factors behind the increase in filings. The number of bankruptcies in Germany is alarmingly high and continues to grow. The country's Chamber of Commerce and Industry, DIHK, has warned. It urged Berlin on Monday to take urgent measures to remedy the situation and tackle high energy prices. The statement came as the government The statement came as the Government Statistical Office published new figures on bankruptcy requests dating back to October 2025. According to its data, the number of corporate requests grew by almost 5% year on year and reached 2,108 at the time. The transport and storage sectors were the most affected. That's not good. The statistical office said, adding that hospitality and construction suffered as well. The number of people who filed for bankruptcy grew by 7.6% year on year and reached over 6,700, according to the office's data. According to the DIHK, the nation experienced the highest number of bankruptcy cases in 11 years. The association said it expects the total number of corporate bankruptcies to surpass 23,000 in 2025, listing energy prices, bureaucracy, and taxes as the key factors behind the trend. The DIHK went on to accuse the government of not doing enough to address the issue. Quote, there is no shortage of political papers with good proposals. Much is written, but far too little is implemented, it said in a statement on Monday. The German economy was dealt a major blow when the country took part in the Western sanctions on Russia in 2022. Before the escalation of the Ukraine conflict, Germany relied on Russia for 55% of its natural gas. Russian oil giant Rosneft's operations also accounted for around 12% of the nation's total oil processing capacity, according to Bloomberg. The decision to abandon cheap Russian energy imports played a major role in slowing down the economy, which contracted in 2023 and 2024, the first back-to-back annual drop since the early 2000s. Bild reported in October 2025 that electricity and gas went up around by 14% and 74%, respectively. Holy crap. From 2022 to 2025. So going back here, it says the transport and storage sectors were the most affected. So transport and storage. So that means that less. When I hear transport, I don't think of commercial travel, like people moving around on trains and planes and buses. I think of freight. I think of shipping, like logistics. Like you're shipping goods on trains, you're shipping goods on trucks, you're shipping goods on planes. That's what I think of when I think of transportation. Storage, similar, like warehouses. Like when I think of storage, I don't think of like, the storage place around the corner where you go get a closet and you keep you empty out your attic into that. I'm thinking like warehouse, like warehouse industry. They aren't building more warehouses because people don't need warehouses to store goods that they're shipping, that they're moving around, right? Again, those two things kind of work hand in hand. The other two that they mentioned are hospitality and construction. Those are the two, in my experience, this is just my own anecdotal experience, those are the two things that suffer, or the first to suffer. And before construction, I would actually put architecture, design, because the design world is the first industry that takes a hit in a serious recession. But hospitality is like restaurants and like resorts and mini golf, bowling alleys, like anything where people are going and either eating food or entertainment, that kind of thing. That's hospitality. But also hotels. I mean, hotels technically fall under hospitality. But it's luxury basically. It's like when you have a large hospitality, thriving hospitality sector, that's a sign that the economy, it's not totally indicative, but it can be a sign of a strong economy because people have money, have expendable income to spend on that kind of stuff. Whereas when people have to tighten their belts, the first thing they're going to cut out of their budget is like going out to eat, right? Going out to restaurants, going out, taking the kids bowling over the weekend, like that kind of stuff, right? Construction is self-explanatory. If you're not building stuff, that means businesses are not opening. That means new businesses are not launching. That means that your existing infrastructure, your existing portfolio of real estate is not being utilized. Because every single time a building turns over and new tenants come in and open up new businesses, whether that business is, a surgical center or a bowling alley or a restaurant, they have to go in there and tear everything out and build something new. That's what I spent years doing, my life doing, and build something new. And they're not doing that as much. That is decreasing. So all of these things are indicative of an economy that is in free fall. And that is really important because Germany is the backbone of the entire European economy. Without Germany, Europe has no economy. Without Germany, Europe is basically Disney World, but the size of the United States, right? It's basically a giant tourist destination because Germany really represented its manufacturing base, what was left of it, and its GDP. And if Germany is in bad shape, then Europe is in bad shape. And without Germany, there is no European Union and there is no NATO from a funding perspective, right? And you can make that argument for the United States too. Without the U.S. funding of NATO, there really is no NATO. Without Germany supplying like the boots on the ground and the weapons and all that, I mean, that's like a lot of NATO is, as Colonel McGregor has pointed out multiple times, is Germany. They're actually the people, boots on the ground, like doing NATO, as I understand it, right? They're the ones hosting the military bases for NATO, for the U.S. Like when people are stationed in Europe, they're most often stationed in Germany, is my understanding, because that's where the NATO bases are. That's where the U.S. military bases are. It's very, very strategic, obviously. It's right in the middle of the continent. It obviously has a very historic significance as it relates to the 20th century and military conflict. So anyway, that is interesting that Germany is involving itself in this Greenland discussion, because it's like, don't you guys need to like go make sure your electricity bill is paid? You need to go make sure your bills are paid so you don't get, your phone's cut off for lack of payment. Interesting. This is it. I just saw this clip, and since it's related, I thought I'd just click on it. U.S. vassals will fall in the line on Greenland grab, according to an American journalist. European NATO nations will do whatever Washington says, John Varoli has told RT. Western European nations are vassals of the U.S. and will inevitably submit if President Donald Trump moves to annex Greenland. American journalist John Varoli has told RT the U.S. president has renewed his push for Denmark to relinquish control of the Arctic island, arguing that Copenhagen is too weak to protect it against an alleged Chinese and Russian threat. One way or the other, we're going to have Greenland, he told journalists on Sunday. Man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this clip up quick enough, but give me 1 second. Probably not. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to it, but describing the Europe as the vassals of the State Department is actually like verbatim what I said at GART years ago. And it's probably not gonna. I'm seeing if I can pull it off my X account. I don't think I can. It's not going to come up quick enough. But yeah, that's exactly what I said 2 or 3 years ago at GART, and it's just stands to fruition. Stands to your proof's right there in the pudding. So now point is, like, my take on this is I think that Greenland, that all this is just blustering. A lot of this is just Trump positioning himself for something else, for some other purpose. And I think that we're going to see that purpose probably reveal itself soon enough. But the fact that he is acting like a pirate in the Caribbean, he's talking about taking control of Greenland in the Northern Atlantic, and he is positing he's telling you that he's going to go bomb Iran and start a war with Iran. All of that to me just feels like theater, but in a very intentional way. Like he's not clumsily doing this. This is something that he absolutely meant to do. Oh, here's the clip. Look at that.
Of the people. We have to think about when Trump says the media is the enemy of the people. Is he referring to the media? Or is he referring to a domestic terrorist organization that controls the media? Or when he says we are in war with an invisible enemy, is he talking about a virus, or is he talking about a crime syndicate that rules over vassals, not just us, but our foreign allies, quote unquote, who really are just vassals to the State Department? So it seems to me like if I'm looking at this from a perspective of writing a story, telling a story, it would make sense that we would reveal the villain to the public, to the audience at some point, so they would have something to grapple onto and identify as their enemy, the same way the media did that to Trump in 2015, 16. So is the election the most important thing? Fixing elections? Absolutely. But is that the narrative that's going to change things? Or is there another narrative that might when it's pulled out, it causes the Jenga tower to topple over and then leads to the revelation that elections are fake and need to be fixed?
Don't forget, this persecution is being done by the same weaponized agencies that for 7 years have been running illegal psychological warfare campaigns against the American people, much as if they were trying to destabilize a foreign country.
There's a lot of other narratives that are at work right now that I think all lead back to the same agency. And you can look at the Epstein storyline, you can look at the foreign wars, the endless wars, the money laundering, COVID. I mean, there's any number of things that if any one of those things were exposed, the truth of it were told, it might change everything. That could be the switch that flips. Are
you talking CIA?
Yes, I'm talking about the CIA. Just so we're clear, that's who I'm talking about, everybody.
They're going to try to have me murdered because they don't own me. And it pisses me off.
Yeah, I said it's about ownership.
It's about control.
I know it's about control. It's about being on the team. I guess that's, you know what I mean?
They want to be on the team.
They want you to be on their team.
And they're going to have to kill me. I'm not going to pause for 2 years. The battle is now. I'm offended by whoever these people are that they're trying to find me out of.
You should be honored.
I think you should go public with this and then say, hey,
No.
these people don't want to, they don't want their...
And I turn my key in my car and I just...
All right, so yeah, you kind of get the point, but that was from Gart Irvine, the second Gart that I went to. That was early January 2024, I believe. Yeah, I guess from a timing standpoint, it would have been early January 2024. Yeah, I mean, I actually forgot about the Kerry Lake portion was in that clip, but listen to them talk about control. That's just what an ownership. Trump was just talking about ownership of Greenland. He was just talking about how, if you don't own it, if you only lease it, you don't really take care of it. You got to own it, own it to actually care about it and take care of it. So fascinating stuff. But yeah, I think that in hindsight, that clip aged pretty well. We are certainly learning about the CIA. We certainly are learning about its regime change operations, and we're certainly learning that most of the world is just a vassal of the State Department, and when it doesn't capitulate, it gets overthrown. Look what happened to Maduro. So yeah, enough on that. Let's pivot and talk about Patagonia, because this is a subject that I've wanted to talk about for the past couple of shows that I've done, but I haven't gotten to. Before we do that, let's do another ad read. And for this one, let me remove this. We're going to go with Tamarack Garden, our friends at Tamarack Gardens. Sorry. Are you looking for a better alternative to the over-the-counter drugstore medications? Tamarack Garden began from a parent's desperate need for safe and effective options for their kids. Tired of toxic chemicals taking matters into their own hands, they began crafting medicine from weeds, wildflowers, and herbs, the original time-tested healers that modern medicine can't match. Packed with antiviral herbs to boost immunity and fight illness, Tamarack Garden has, for a limited time, their elderberry and rosehip syrup kit available. Not only is it delicious, no more battles with kids, and easy to make, it will keep you and your family healthy all winter, all fall and winter. Introducing Tamarack Gardens' new baby line, clean, non-toxic, and gentle for newborn moms, and relieving cradle cap, diaper rash, stretch marks, and postpartum pain. Visit tamarackgarden.com today and use promo code Badlands for 10% or $10 off orders over $50. Remember to eat your weeds. tamarackgarden.com, promo code Badlands. And I can't say enough nice things about the Tamarack Garden family. They are such nice people. They've come to multiple guards, and they just really know their stuff inside and out. And they've generously given me some of their products, and I've used them. The syrup kits are delicious. They always give out little shots of like the elderberry drink at the guards. That's delicious. And they gave me some baby powder too, and I use that on my son. And this is of course after the fact that I think the Johnson & Johnson baby powder was revealed to cause cancer. I remember reading that at some point. So anyway, Tamarack Gardens, cannot say enough good things about them. Fantastic people. Please go support them and shop with America First vendors before you go shop anywhere else. I think that's the way that we build a parallel economy, and that's the way we get out of this globalist hellscape. So with that said, let's go to Patagonia. All right, so Patagonia, we have this interesting article from, it's a Substack article from DD Geopolitics, which is a pretty good follow. Sometimes they post some stuff where I'm like, hey, that take is a little sounds a little vaccinated. When, because they kind of lean into the Trump as a warmonger. But, if you're not looking at it through the lens of devolution, if you're not looking at it through the lens of Trumpomania, the ciphers that we use here on Badlands, I understand why certain analysts would fall for the Trump as a warmonger, Trump is a Zionist puppet take. Oh, you know what? That reminds me. I wanted to talk about this on Daily, but I didn't get a chance to. I mentioned this to John, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about this right now. I saw a clip that made me laugh out loud, and it was this one. I posted it. This one. All right, so back in September, I went and found the comment. This isn't something that I like really went on about on stream or anything, because I wasn't trying to sling mud or pick a fight. It's just like, hey, let's keep an eye on this. And we were talking about, this is when Nick Fuentes really started to go. He was like allowed in the algorithm. Remember, he went and interviewed with Patrick Bet-David, and then eventually he did an interview with Tucker, and they were really shoving him down everyone's throat. And on that interview with Patrick Bet-David, he made a comment about Iran and basically said that he would side with Israel over Iran, alluded to that in the commentary. And I just said, hey, look, if this guy is Israeli-controlled opposition, this is what I said in like the private Badlands chat. If this guy is Israeli-controlled opposition, then what I would expect him to do at some point in the near future is I would expect him to basically go after the Sovereign Alliance leaders from a different attack vector than, Ben Shapiro and the typical like neocon, Con Inc. vendors, right? But I said I would expect him actually to go after Nicolas Maduro, because Nicolas Maduro and Hugo Chavez were and are the two most vocal. Venezuela, their entire regime government, is the most vocal anti-Israel government in the world, I would argue, more so than even like Iran and like the Middle Eastern countries. They have been hyper pro-Palestine and anti-Israel for the past 30 years. And Hugo Chavez even has a Palestinian flag that's flown at his burial site, like next to his sarcophagus, the Venezuelan flag and the Palestine flag. That's how like passionate he was about being pro-Palestine. So I said it would be interesting if he went after Maduro, since him and Maduro align on that, like that issue, right? And I would also expect to see him, when the question of Iranian regime change comes up, I would expect to see him sympathize with the Israelis and say, hey, Groypers, we need to cut a deal with the devil and help the Israelis go after Iran so that we don't end up under Islamic Jihad Caliphate, right? Like that nonsense. And I think actually the exact comment I made was, I said, this is on September 23rd. I said, Netanyahu is going to move against Iran, and Fuentes will tell his audience that we need to make a deal with the devil and let the Israelis go after the brain trust of the brown Muslims who are taking over the West. The plan is to turn Turkey and Iran against one another, which formally brings NATO into the Middle East against Russia. They've always been there, of course. And then even then, I was citing something from weeks before that where I said, yeah, we're going to see Fuentes going after the Sovereign Alliance here soon. Let's keep an eye on that and see if it happens. That's what's happening here. So let's watch this clip. Oh, wait, I'm not sharing my screen. And I haven't been sharing my screen this whole time, guys. I've been just talking. So I was looking for the exact post.
It's a movement for right-wing Americans that want America to have primacy over the entire planet, as much power, as much abundance, as many resources as possible. So if you're coming around with this nonsense about they stole the oil, that's not moral. They intervened in another country. You violated their sovereignty. I don't give a shit. I don't care at all. We do it all the time, and we've done it for centuries. It's called manifest destiny. It's called the Mexican-American War, the Spanish-American War, the Bay of Pigs. We do it all the time. This is our world, and at the minimum, this is our half. This is our half of the world for us to have uncontested, undisputed dominance, military, commercial, naval, every way, shape, and form. And we will take what we are entitled to. We will take what makes us safer, richer, more prosperous. We will take what we want. Nobody can stop us, and we'll do it again, and I hope we do. And I hope we do it in Greenland, and I hope we do it in Panama, and I hope we do it in Cuba. I hope we do it everywhere where it makes sense for us. You got a problem with that? I don't know. Go back to fucking Pakistan. Go back to some other country and complain about it on the internet. Invented by America. So anyway, I don't know if I want to hear the comments. Botted the dislikes on Telegram award. Pakistanis botted the dislikes on Telegram. It means nothing. We could kidnap your leader too, if it was necessary. Anyway, so, okay, we're already getting started. Well, look, I've been waiting for this. I've been looking forward to this. So anyway.
I've been looking forward to this. I've been waiting for this. Yeah. And look, I get it. I get that Nick Fuentes is a troll, and, you know, he says stuff. He's a provocateur. He says stuff to get a reaction. He says stuff like this because he wants people like me and others talking about his clip. I get that. But like, if you actually analyze what he just said, citing the Bay of Pigs as like an example of America imposing itself on another country, the Bay of Pigs was a abject failure. We tried to invade Cuba, and basically we stopped ourselves halfway through the invasion and let all the invaders die, who were all, you know, Central American nationals that we trained up to overthrow the Cuban government, and then we just left them on the beach to die. And the CIA did that so they could blame it on JFK. It was a terrible example to cite if you're trying to make the point he was just making. He's also too low information to realize that the Maduro regime is still completely intact. I think most people actually don't even fully realize that. And when he says we do it all the time, we've been doing it forever. Yeah, my understanding is that I don't really know all of his positions and all of his arguments, but my understanding is that he has been like anti-neocon, anti-Zionist. You know, doesn't he blame the Jews for like stealing the world's resources and hoarding them for themselves, like using the U.S. military and the American political apparatus as the bludgeoning tool? I thought that was his whole shtick. So now he's arguing against all of that. He's undermining his own lifelong career argument. Why? Well, maybe he just doesn't fully understand the situation. Maybe he doesn't fully grasp. But I mean, the normie level narrative is that Trump went in there, kidnapped Nicolas Maduro, and seized the oil and took control of the country, right? So even if like he's obviously accepted that premise, Nicolas Maduro, all of the anti-Zionist Groyper types like him have been banging their fists on the table for months now, posting clips of Maduro being super based and red pilled, talking about Israel. So all of his fans know that Maduro is like a huge anti-Israel guy, right? And yet here he is celebrating the kidnapping of Maduro. I think this guy is Israeli-controlled opposition. That's my position. And I would happily debate him or any of his friends on that, because I think that their positions are ultimately pro-regime and they're ultimately serve the interests of guys like Bibi Netanyahu and Laura Loomer, who want to use their ridiculous rhetoric as the reason why we need anti-Semitic hate speech laws that will be enforced against people like me. So anyway, yeah, I think I saw, the point is I saw this coming. I saw this guy coming out and specifically going after Maduro, but also going after Iran and saying we should support Israel in attacking Iran, which it sounds like from what I'm reading and people posting, he's of that mind as well. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So with that said, let's pivot to, sorry, my phone was just blowing up. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't one of you texting me to say that we have some massive technical issue. Let's go to this Patagonia thing. Okay, so I'm showing you this Substack article because I think this is a really good consolidation of a lot of this information. It's a good place for presentation wise, so we don't have to jump all over from tab to tab, kind of like showing the pieces. This is from January 10th, so 4 days. It was published 4 days ago. And this is something that I think, if I understand it, blew up kind of on Friday. Is that right? Yeah, it kind of blew up on Friday. And so this was published on Saturday. Thursday, Friday, videos started going viral across the internet about wildfires in Patagonia. Patagonia, let's pull up the map because we like maps here on this show. Patagonia is like the most southern part of the Americas, the most southern part of South America. Okay, so when we look at Patagonia, maybe I can actually find a map where Patagonia is highlighted. Yeah, so here is, generally speaking, I mean, you're basically talking about Argentina and Chile. I mean, those are the two countries that are involved here, but it's the entire southern portion of Argentina. It's Patagonia and Chile. Okay. And basically there have been a bunch of wildfires there that have suddenly popped up. 80,000, as I understand it, is it 80,000 acres? Yeah, I think it's 80,000 acres have been destroyed. That's one of the official figures I've seen. And basically, the general thesis here is that this is IDF soldiers that are doing this. And let's walk through some of the evidence. We don't want to put the cart before the horse in assuming outcomes, but there are some really compelling elements of this that support that theory. And it doesn't appear they start with the compelling elements. So I can just pull up the Badlands news brief because I actually included this in our Monday edition. So let's just go to the Badlands news brief because I did pull up these historic elements. And that would be here. Patagonia on fire is the take. Okay, so here's a YNet news article from 2014. Chile, Israelis thrown out of national park for lighting a fire. 2 years after South American country accused Israeli backpacker for causing massive wildfire in Torres del Paine, is it Paine? It might be Paine National Park. Israelis are once again kicked out of the park for violating ban on fire. Chilean media, this is from January 21st, 2014. So now this would be exactly, or almost exactly 12 years ago, a week away from 12 years ago. Chilean media reported Tuesday that 4 Israeli backpackers were thrown out of the Torres del Paine National Park, one of the most popular parks in South America, for violating the area's laws and lighting fire in the park's jurisdiction for the purpose of starting a bonfire. One of those Israeli travelers' father told YNet, by the way, this website is the largest Israeli online media outlet. One of the Israeli travelers' father told YNet that as far as he knows, the local police released the backpackers. Quote, all they wanted to do was heat up some tuna fish, he said. Just 2 years ago, so this would be 2012, an Israeli traveler, Rotem Singer, was accused of causing a massive wildfire that destroyed tens of thousands of acres in the natural reserve for burning toilet paper. The Chilean media is constantly reminding of that incident in its current report. According to Chilean reports, the 4 Israeli backpackers were surprised by the national park's inspectors in the wee hours of the night while burning papers in tin bins and adding pieces of wood into them. The inspectors evacuated the Israelis from the scene and filed a complaint against them with the police, and according to the reports, also transferred them to the hands of the police officers. Following the incident, Torres del Paine authorities reminded visitors to be attentive to park procedure. They reminded that at the entrance to the national park, all travelers must sign papers clarifying the rules which are to be respected in the area, particularly the ban on lighting fire within the park territory. And then it just goes on to explain the park. It says previous Israeli indiscretion. In January 2012, an Israeli tourist, 23, Rotem Singer, was arrested in Chile following a massive wildfire that broke out in the natural reserve. The authorities accused him that a toilet paper he burned caused the fire to spread as firefighters battled the great forest fire for days. Singer denied the allegations, and after a month, he reached a settlement with the Chilean prosecution and was released. At the time, Chilean politicians raised a demand to have Israel pay for the damage caused to the area, as the Czech Republic did after a Czech tourist caused a fire a few years earlier. 6 months later, the Jewish National Fund announced a campaign to raise millions of dollars to aid the rebuilding of the park. The fire in Chile in 2012 brought about several harsh anti-Israel and anti-Semitic expressions, yada, anti-Israel. The details of that, I think I have the details of that exact article. Well, the details of that are that 4 airplanes and a helicopter were used for 3 days, along with other firefighters, to fight the flames, and tens of thousands of acres of forest were destroyed. And yeah, it was a really, really big deal. And apparently this guy was lighting toilet paper on fire and whoops, got away from him. Okay. So then it happens again in 2014, but they catch these kids in the middle of the night, like starting a fire, like starting multiple fires in the middle of the night in trash cans, and then detain them, hand them over to the police, and then they're basically released and a public warning is issued. All right. So let's jump forward now to 2017. Here's an article from 2017. It says, Jewish community rejects the statements of the director of CONAF, It promotes a scenario of hatred and indiscretion. This is February 15th, 2017. The Chilean Jewish Institution expressed its discomfort against the director of CONAF, Magallanes, who indicated that the Israelis expelled last week from the Torres del Paine National Park have a culture of not obeying. This is from Santiago, Chile. The Jewish community of Chile classified as serious and worrying the statements of the director of CONAF in Magallanes, Elizabeth Munez, about the 3 Israeli tourists who were expelled from the Torres del Paine National Park for handling fire in an unauthorized area. And let's just look up what this thing is real quick. CONAF de Magallanes, or CONAF in Magallanes, is a entity responsible for the management and protection of protected wildlife areas in the Magallanes and Chilean Antarctic region, the southernmost and largest region of Chile. Okay, so it's the southernmost region in Chile, and this organization is responsible for managing the forests. All right, because this is what it looks like down there. It's very beautiful. It's some of the most sought after, hiking and outdoors stuff in the region. And by the way, it's summertime right now down there. It's winter here, but it's summer in Patagonia. Okay, so it says Munez declared today to Tele 13 radio that the majority of expulsions in Torres del Paine correspond to Israeli tourists. Quote, I have been reviewing the statistics, and since 2012, we have had 36 expulsions, of which 23 were Israeli. It says Israelites, but I think they mean Israelis, because Israelites would refer to the house of Israel from the Bible, and we're just talking about, Israeli nationals. And these 3 are also Israelites. It seems that they have a culture of not obeying and going against the rules, he said. I think they mean she said. The Jewish community, through a statement, expresses discomfort with the statements of the director of the entity, indicating that this generalization only fosters a scenario of hatred and discrimination. Quote, we condemn all types of attacks against the nature of our country, but we cannot accept that our authorities make these types of statements that give rise to acts of hatred at a time when Chile is fighting to end discrimination against tourists and immigrants, the document indicated. The CONAF official also pointed out that, quote, in the hostels they have joined and these people are not received by nationality. However, we cannot prohibit entry, but if they present, the translation is very awkward. If they present an aggressive attitude, we can remove them. Regarding this fact, the Jewish organization indicated that, quote, it must be condemned by the Chilean authorities due to the obvious xenophobic and racist overtones. Quote, the Jewish community asked the National Forestry Corporation, CONAF, that these types of situations not be repeated so that together we can avoid climates of hostilities and racism that we do not want for our country, the document concludes. The events occurred last week when tourists of Israeli origin lit a stove in an unauthorized area. So again, the pattern here is these are all happening in areas where they say, hey, you can't start a fire in this area, right? Unauthorized area, and CONAF personnel, based on the premises use of fire regulations, expelled them from the premises. After formalization, the 3 tourists were fined close to $600,000, which will be allocated to the victims of the forest fires in the central southern region. Holy crap. $600,000 fine. So they must have really been somewhere they weren't supposed to be, and the evidence must have been very damning that whatever they were doing, it looked really sketchy because they got a $600,000 fine. That other guy, Rotem Singer, I want to say he definitely had to pay a fine, but it was like, let me see, what was the fine? What was the fine that Rotem Singer had to pay Chile in 2012? I want to say $80,000, but $10,000. So he had to pay $10,000 in 2012, and in 2017, these people had to pay and it was 10,000 local currency. So it was $2,700 American. So it was $2,700 USD and $10,000 Chilean. And I assume the $600,000 fine must also be Chilean. But if we do the quick math on that, that would be 2,700 times 6 times 10. So it's 2,700 times 60. And that would be $162,000 USD. I'm just making assumptions here. Okay. So anyway, getting back to the original Substack. So the point is that not only is there a pattern that is happening over like many years, that these forest fires, that Israeli citizens are being expelled, nationals are being expelled from this park in Chile. It's a park, I assume, that probably is in Chile and in Argentina. But they're being expelled from Chile in this case. And then the official from the government is even saying on radio, yes, this is a pattern. And I've noticed this pattern too, that 2/3 of the people we're expelling from the park for starting fires unlawfully are Israeli citizens. That's very strange, right? Okay. Now we go back to the Substack. So it says, as I was scrolling through the news feeds trying to keep up with some of the chaos unfolding around the world, I stumbled across a flurry of reports from Argentina about raging wildfires tearing through Patagonia. Starting around January 5th, 2026, flames have devastated thousands of hectares in Chubut province, areas like El Hoyo, Puerto Patriada, and near Apillon, and prompting evacuations amid thick smoke, destroyed homes, and threatened ecosystems. Thousands of Argentines and other Spanish speakers were flooding the replies on X about the blazes, most of them incredibly irate at the Malay government. Phrases like, quote, the Zionists are trying to steal Patagonia, and, quote, Malay has sold us out to Israel, end quote, popped up repeatedly in viral threads, and users showing videos of suspicious activity linking the fires to foreign interests. I thought, sure, these could be bots amplifying outrage, but Elon's bot army has always been staunchly pro-Malay, relentlessly boosting his image as a free market hero and his tight alliances with Israel. So why were genuine locals, from southern Patagonians to urban commentators, reacting with such raw, widespread fury, accusing their own president of enabling a Zionist takeover? I jumped down the rabbit hole, cross-checking eyewitness accounts, viral clips, in the mounting public backlash, and what I discovered was yet another stark instance of Zionist imperialism sweeping across the globe, this time setting South America's pristine frontiers ablaze to pave the way for control and exploitation. So here's a video. Let's watch this video. Okay, so they're speaking Spanish, so I'm going to read what they're saying on screen. It's one guy, I've seen this clip before, it's one guy confronting this other guy. The guy that you're looking at is allegedly an Israeli citizen, and they can identify him because of the way they dress and the way they speak, and they're Hebrew, like they're speaking Hebrew. That's how, apparently, they're very easy to spot. That's what the Chileans or the Argentines all say. Okay, so the guy confronting him says, you have 1 hour to get out of here. That's what he says. You have 1 hour to get out of here. 1 hour to get out of here. And he says, yeah, go on. And the guy is trying to walk down this hill, and he says, please over there, like there, the tent over there, the other side. He's telling the guy to go back to his tent. Not the forest. You can't make fires. It's prohibited. You can't make a fire in here. The guy's like, okay, because like the pretext is that this guy is confronting this other guy because this guy is planning to go down into this area and start a fire. He's going to go start a bonfire. And the guy's saying, do not go down there and start a fire. You can build a fire over there where there's no trees. You can't walk down there and start a fire where there's trees. He says, you're the sons of bitches who are setting us on fire. And this guy's at this point crying. You can hear him crying as he's filming this. He says, you're the sons of bitches who are setting us on fire. The whore that gave birth to you. Get the hell out of here. Come on. And the guy walks away. And how can you be making a fire, brother? Okay, so now he's filming himself. He says, I just went all the way around because I saw a cloud of smoke and came out here. Okay, and here they are, these sons of bitches. These sons of bitches are setting fires. MFer, get out, son of a bitch. He's screaming at him now. So he's saying he saw a column of smoke, and so he walked over and he found these guys starting fires, and he's telling them to stop. He says, who's going to take care of it, brother? Who's going to take care of it? Someone has to be here. Look. And so, let's see. In footage captured by Argentine hiker Martin Morales, one suspect is seen kneeling and igniting dry grass and branches in a high-risk zone amid extreme fire danger conditions, while his companion stands watch. Morales confronts them in Spanish, yelling, "How can you be making a fire, brother?" The men scramble to extinguish the flames with water from a nearby stream, gather their gear, and then flee down the trail without a word, leaving Morales to ensure the fire is fully out before alerting park rangers via radio. He later posted a follow-up video explaining his actions. Quote, "I was alone. I couldn't get close. They had bad intentions. I made sure the fire was off and they left. I'm not crying from fear. It's the impotence, brother." And the screenshot of this post says from Cesar Biodini. It says Martin Morales, a resident of El Calafate, managed to prevent a couple of tourists from starting a fire in the Laguna Torre Forest, Los Glaciares National Park. They would be Israelis, according to the resident. Almost simultaneously, the police detained another quote-unquote tourist who tried to do the same in the La Ribera Urban Natural Reserve. Patagonia is completely abandoned by federal forces. It says further, local news outlet Ahora Calafate reports. So it just reads the no, I'm sorry. This actually gives you some data. It says according to Morales, the tourist would be of Israeli origin, data that has already been provided to the authorities. This incident, dated around January 6th, lines up with the outbreak of multiple blazes that have since merged into a massive inferno, scorching over 17,500 hectares across Chubut province and forcing the evacuation of more than 3,000 tourists and residents. And just for reference, 17,500 hectares is 43,243 acres. So over 43,000 acres have been burned as of the writing of this report, which was published 4 days ago. It says forcing the evacuation of more than 3,000 tourists and residents. Thick smoke has blanketed the region, destroying homes, razing indigenous Mapuche lands, and obliterating ancient ecosystems, with Chile sending cross-border aid and Argentina's unfunded brigades struggling. At this point, I needed a break. So then they have a post by Megatron. Megatron's kind of a shill. Like I don't like the way he posts. And the reason I don't like the way he posts is I don't like that he will post a headline, like he'll post something that he saw, and then he will take a screenshot, not of the actual article that he's posting about, like the news narrative, but just of the individual or the thing that is being discussed in the headline, and then he doesn't post a link to like what he's talking about. So then you have to go verify, is what he's saying actually real? Like he'll say, Donald Trump says that he's going to invade Greenland, and he'll just post a random picture of Donald Trump, and that's it. No link. And then his post will go viral, right? This one has 380,000 views. But there'll be no link so that you can like actually go source it and not even a screenshot of an article so I can go look at like, okay, here's an article I should be looking for. Here's the news outlet. Here's the headline. None of that. That's why I don't like Megatron. I think he's kind of a shill. It says breaking: the grenade found in Patagonia that caused huge fires is an M26 IM manufactured in Israel. It is used by the Israel Defense Forces, IDF. 2 Israelis caught setting up the fires. And then there's a video. I've seen this video as well. It is a news. It's like it seems to be some sort of a television punditry show where like people are talking about news events. Not too dissimilar from what we do here on Badlands. And they're discussing it's in Spanish, so I can't verify what they're saying, but it does appear on screen that they're talking about forest fires in Patagonia, and then it shows a grenade, and they mention Israel. So it does appear that that's what's happening in the context of the video. Doesn't mean that the video is real. Doesn't mean that we can verify it, because of course the shill Megatron won't source the data. He wants to be a gatekeeper between the consumers of his content and the real information that he claims to be reporting. Adding to the sabotage suspicions, reports from Argentine sources and ex-post claim authorities discovered several M26 fragmentation grenades, military hardware used by the U.S. and Israeli forces, scattered near Lake Epeyén. So let's figure out where Lake Epeyén is. Go back to Google Maps. All right, so here's Lake Epayin, and it looks like it is man, so it is right there on the border of Chile. Look at that. Right there. And where's that other national park that we were talking about, the other one? The one that was the Torres Paine? Where's Torres Paine? Torres Paine National Park. Maybe it's pronounced Paine. I mean, that's what it looks like in English, but I doubt it. It's got to be Parque Nacional Torres del Paine. That's what I would assume. That is okay. So that's further north, it looks like. Oh, no. Wow, deep south. That is like right down there near the Cape. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so and then there's the Chubut province that it's talking about. Interesting. All right, so getting back to the post, to the Substack, Chubut's prosecutor confirmed arson via accelerants like gasoline in at least one fire. Governor Ignacio Torres vowed, quote, the wretches who started the fire will end up in prison amid a manhunt and an offer of 50 million pesos reward for tips. That got my gears turning. Why would Israelis be igniting fires in this remote, resource-rich corner of the world? Patagonia isn't just stunning wilderness and puffy coats. It's packed with vast freshwater resources, and it's home to some of the planet's purest glacial water sources, massive aquifers, and rivers that feed into the global ecosystem. It's also full of Elon's favorites, minerals like lithium, rare earths, copper, zinc, silver, and even uranium deposits in strategic zones. The region's untapped oil, gas, and land also make it geopolitically vital, a frontier ripe for control in an era of resource wars and climate-driven scarcity. Yeah, I kind of reject that last part, but that's like Malthusianism coming through. Digging deeper, I uncovered a pattern that's impossible to ignore, one that stretches back over a decade across the border. So now they're going to go through and give you the background. I just wanted to start with the background because I think it gives a better context to like everything as you're going through it. So now they go back and they cover everything that I just went through at the beginning. They talk about the 2014 event. They talk about the 2012 event. They talk about the 2017 event. Says the real kicker in Argentina's nightmare is Javier Milei, the self-proclaimed anarcho-capitalist who's turned the country into a Zionist puppet show. Milei, an ardent Zionist backed tooth and nail by the U.S. and Israel, didn't just slash government spending. He gutted the very agencies that could have prevented this catastrophe. Under his chainsaw austerity, environmental budgets were hacked up by 84.5% in real terms due to inflation, under execution, and deliberate policy shifts, crippling wildfire response and forest conservation efforts across the board. The National Fire Management Service, crippled with real-term cuts of around 81% in 2024 versus 2023, leaving it woefully under-resourced for prevention, brigades, and aerial support amid rising fire risks from climate change and drought. The Fund for the Environmental Protection of Native Forests completely eliminated in a October 2024 decree, stripping away dedicated financing for conservation, sustainable use, restoration projects, and provincial enforcement against illegal deforestation and fires. National Parks Administration sliced by 34% in real terms from 2023 to 2024, leaving just a skeleton crew of about 350 to 391 firefighters nationwide to cover over 5 million hectares of protected land, a number far below the recommended 700, with requests for reinforcements largely declined. Malay's adjustments, including the dissolution of the Ministry of Environment into a downgraded subsecretariat with broader state shrinking measures, have left Argentina defenseless against these blazes, turning a dry summer into an apocalypse, while locals and experts decry the policy as a deliberate enabler of environmental vulnerability. Wow, you mean anarcho-capitalism and stupid, it doesn't work? Shocking. Yeah, see, that's the, I don't know who this woman is who wrote this. And I always say that because you can tell at the top it's written by Sarah B. I mean, DD Politics is pretty solid, but I'm not really familiar with all their writers. And Lord Bebo's pretty good. I don't know anything about this chick, but she seems like a leftist, some sort of a leftist. Okay, so then here is a graph showing everything that she's kind of talking about. National Fire Management Fund. And it shows it going from 68, I don't know if that's million, to 20 million. I don't know what that can't be 68,000. It's got to be, it says in millions of $26. So yeah, 68 million to 20 million. That's what it is. Okay. And I'm sorry, this is the tab that I'm sharing. So now we can go back to this and say, I've been talking to Argentines on the ground, friends, contacts, everyday folks, and they're furious. Our government sold us out, one told me, describing skies black with ash and families fleeing with nothing, homes destroyed, livelihoods ruined, and no real help in sight. Generous Chileans have stepped in with firefighting crews and resources because Argentina's too broke and broken to handle it alone. Cross-border cooperation has been a lifeline in past incidents, and local governments are grateful for the neighborly aid with their own government when their own government seems absent. Indigenous Mapuche communities already locked in long-standing battles against land grabs, foreign buy-ups, and evictions are hardest hit, their ancestral territories torched, cultural sites threatened, and displacement amplified. Meanwhile, Malay's regime and figures like Security Minister Patricia Bullrich point fingers at them as terrorists or self-proclaimed Mapuche terrorist groups. This scapegoating serves to distract from the real arson suspects, budget cuts that crippled prevention, and broader resource pressures, while human rights groups condemned it as criminalization to clear the way for exploitation. There's a picture of some of the fires. Malay's subservience to Zionists is no secret. He's been bailed out repeatedly by U.S. and Israeli interests, cozying up to Netanyahu like a lapdog, visiting him in Israel shortly after his 2023 election win. Yeah, I mean, we've kind of gone through a lot of this. So it mentions the Isaac Accords, which he launched with a $1 million Genesis Prize windfall to tie Latin America tighter to Israel, mirroring the Abraham Accords, by fostering tech, security, commerce, and cultural ties, starting with Uruguay, Panama, and Costa Rica, while eyeing expansions to Brazil, Colombia, and Chile. Some whisper he's already converted to Judaism in secret. Yeah, and then it goes on to name some rabbi that he works with, attending Kabbat events. Others say he's just playing the game for power, leveraging Zionist support to shore up his own regime amid economic collapse. Either way, his administration has opened the door wide for Israeli influence, from Mekarat's predatory water deals, stripping away local resources, to massive land buys like by Zionist-linked tycoons like Eduardo Elstains and Joe Lewis. And then they are citing pictures of ex-posts that are in Spanish, so I can't translate them. And then it goes on to explain, on the waterfront is Mekarat, an Israeli state-owned water giant notorious for enforcing water apartheid in Palestine by denying Palestinians access while favoring Israeli settlements, has inked deals with at least 12 Argentine provinces since 2022. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Providing technical assistance for master plans, economic valuation of water, and regulatory frameworks that critics say pave the way for privatization and exploitation. These opaque agreements, often lacking public consultation and transparency on costs, benefit mining and agricultural oligarchs, while locals face water scarcity. Under Milei, the push intensified with the 2025 privatization of AYSA, Argentina's national water utility, serving 11 million in Buenos Aires. Fueling fears Mekarat will snatch it up, controlling up to half the nation's water supply, despite Milei's libertarian rhetoric against state involvement. Protests erupted, with activists branding it as water colonialism for Mekarat, as Mekarat eyes Patagonia's glaciers and aquifers for export amid global shortages. For some reason, when an outside private entity controls the country's water, it really gives me the creeps. Yeah, I would agree with that. Then there's Eduardo Elstains, and they have a picture of him right here. The Argentine Zionist tycoon, dubbed South America's richest Jew, whose empire was built on a 1990 $10 million seed from George Soros. That is interesting. And spans IRSA, real estate giant, Cresud, which is an agribusiness behemoth with cattle ranching tied to deforestation in the Gran Chaco, and massive personal holdings of over 100,000 hectares near San Carlos del Bariloche in Patagonia, plus stakes in Brazilian and U.S. ventures. A devout Kabod Lubavitch, there's that follower with family in Israel. Elstein served as treasurer of the World Jewish Congress, owns a controlling stake in Israel's IDB conglomerate, and acts as, which is assessed at $35 billion, spanning telecom, supermarkets, and insurance, and acts as Malay's liaison to Orthodox Jewish networks. His land grabs, including 5 massive water wells in drought-hit Mendoza, gifted by Malay, have fueled theories of Zionist colonization, with critics accusing him of turning Patagonia into a resource extraction zone for global elites. Joe Lewis, the British billionaire with shadowy ties to cryptocurrency speculators like Soros, rounds out the cabal. His Lago Escondido estate not only blocks indigenous and public access, but hosts elite retreats for judges, media moguls, and politicians, blurring lines between business and state. The estate functions as a de facto privatized enclave that locals and activists have long branded a parallel state outside Argentine law, acquired through allegedly irregular purchases starting in the 1990s via companies like Hidden Lake SA. The land lies within a restricted border security area where foreign ownership is prohibited under Argentina's national defense law. Yet Lewis was allowed to fence it off, build a massive mansion, private airport, unmonitored by the state, heliport, power plants, soccer fields, stables, and more, blocking public access to the lake despite over 25 court rulings since 2005 ordering open roads. What sets Lewis apart is his reported use of aggressive private security, described in multiple investigative reports as a private army, an organized gang, or organized gangs to enforce the blockade and repel intruders. While not overtly Zionist in mainstream reports, link him to broader while not overtly Zionist in mainstream reports, link him to broader plot through his Jewish heritage and Patagonia parallel state, where he's entertained Zionists and fueled land grab fears amid 2025 wildfires, blamed on arson to devalue property for cheap buys. These tycoons are more than investors. They're the vanguard of a takeover, turning Argentina's south into a privatized Zionist outpost. Yeah, I know this is all pretty shocking, right? It gets spookier. While I was digging deeper into the land grabs in Patagonia and the web of billionaire influence choking the region, I stumbled upon this 6-month-old Reddit post on Reddit Republica Argentina that stopped me cold, titled, quote, "Conspiracy theories, or are they seriously occupying Patagonia?" It was a thread started by a user, and it gives the name, sharing anonymous comments from locals in El Bason. Okay, let me see if I can open this up in a new tab. Maybe we can read it. And I think my problem now is I've opened so many tabs that when I open a new tab, it doesn't want me to. It's bumping it off the screen. All right, here it is. It says, taken from comments of 2 users who I won't dox. I'm from El Bason, and there have been tons of Israelis in the area for like 20 years. So this is from like 6 months ago. They leave the army and buy land around here. In Lago Puelo, they have a big hostel that's kind of a commune where they coordinate everything. Years ago, I didn't know what was going on or about the genocide thing. But now it's crazy that they come with all that cash and buy up land in the area subdivisions. On top of that, the land gets approved for development after wildfires, meaning the land stops being native forest, and some guys buy it to resell it. For a few years, they couldn't do it because of the forest law, but with the mega decree that went out the window, and now they can exploit or sell it. Another user responding to the first. I'm also from El Bason. My grandpa was offered a ridiculously low price to buy 7 hectares in the Los Repollos area. He said he wasn't interested, and a few months later, a huge fire happened, and they offered him even less money. We also have to add that in a video, they interviewed some guy from a hostel, and he said how one of the hostel's employees went looking for a group of Israeli tourists in the forest. When he found them, they had several pieces of equipment that looked like long-range radio comms and one of those satellite phones. And when they saw the Argentinian employee, they started talking nervously amongst themselves, obviously in Hebrew, and quickly put everything away. I don't know, folks. Maybe the Andinian plan is a hoax or some crazy plan that was scraped ages ago. But maybe on their own initiative, these people saw an opportunity to move here and at the same time bring more than just their families. Maybe bringing along governmental or national interest, but without the participation of their government. Still, it seems like too much of a coincidence that right when the DNU or the bases law, I don't remember which, changed that forest law thing. And since the K's and leftists protested it, along with someone from the Civic Coalition, many didn't take them seriously. But maybe it's time to take them seriously. Please, anyone with info, anecdotes, or anything related to this topic, please share. The idea isn't to stigmatize any ethnicity or religion. But if you added up a lot of the coincidences, it means there is something we can't ignore for fear of looking like conspiracy theorists or discriminators. And meanwhile, England surrounds us with ships grabbing more and more from the Falklands towards Antarctica, violating international agreements and illegally entering Argentine waters. And to top it all off, building a new port in that stolen territory and also installing an oil platform with an Israeli company nearby. Okay. And then there's an edit, but we don't need to read that. It's just some sort of like boilerplate. I'm not racist. I'm not anti-Semitic, whatever. Okay. And what they're talking about here with that, I think this might be the video they're talking about. I know that.
Y luego una hora y media de buscarlo, las
This is
encontramos.
the video that they were talking about. Okay. The post included testimonies that paint a disturbing picture. Yeah. And so it goes on to explain the post that we just read. We don't need to read that whole paragraph all over again. So here's the clip that the guy's talking about. And this is done by, I believe this is Sebastian Salgado, if I'm not mistaken, who appears to be a local journalist. Yeah, there's Sebastian Salgado.
Este es el hotel Onda Azul en Lago Puelo.
So I need to read this because this is all in Spanish. Excuse me, and I am coming down with some kind of a cold, so that's why my nose is stuffed up and I probably sound terrible. This is Onda Azul Hotel in Lago Puelo, Chubut Province. So we just looked at that place, Chubut Province, right? This is Hispanic TV. When they arrive in the Argentine Republic, dressed as backpackers, these Israeli military personnel with experience in weapons and explosives have international arrest warrants for crimes against humanity in Palestine. So they're claiming that these two guys got arrested and they are from the IDF and they have specialization in explosives for crimes against humanity in Palestine, but they walk through Patagonia disguised as tourists, like thousands of others. A few years ago, visiting a refuge, the Motoko refuge, which I think many people know. One day there was a group of Israelis and someone woke me up early and said, "Hey man," so now he's interviewing this mountain guide that they're going to show you in a second. There's a group that just went off onto one of the trails.
Un grupo que se acaba de ir.
Okay. But he told me they didn't leave they didn't leave very early. And no, I don't know what their intention was. So one of the duties of the refuge caretaker, Luis, was to go look for them. So he was basically, that was the narrator explaining something as he's playing an overlay, like an overdub of this guy starting to speak. And then he goes on to explain that it's this guy's job to basically like make sure everyone in the park is safe. He's like a mountain guide, right? And so when he hears about a group that has gone off on their own, he's got to go look for them, right? So it says, of the refuge caretaker, Luis, was to go look for them. And after an hour, so it says one of the duties of the caretaker, Luis, was to go look for them. And after an hour and a half of searching, we found them. And Luis says, they were pressed up against the river on a very large rock with equipment, which would be radio equipment. They were with devices, and those devices had antennas and one of those large satellite type phones. When they heard us, they were surprised. They started packing everything up very, very quickly, and that was it. They gathered everything, and within the group, needless to say, they started speaking Hebrew. And he tried to communicate with the one who spoke Spanish, and they packed everything away and started to leave. And so now this is the reporter Salgado speaking again. He says, a hostel that represents part of the circuit of Israeli soldiers who walk through Patagonia, and which at the same time is located extremely close to the main wildfire hotspot in this region, Paulina is Lebanese. She sells shawarma from her food cart in Bariloche. She personally knows what a Zionist invasion of territory means. Okay, so she's from Lebanon. In Patagonia, there has been a Zionist presence. This is the woman now speaking, the woman from Lebanon now speaking. There has been a Zionist presence located for more than 20 years. Little by little, they are filtering in through different companies, and people don't realize it because they believe they come from the Middle East, or I'm sorry, the Middle West, or I think she's calling the Middle West like the Middle East because it's the western part of Asia. A lot of like the rest of the world actually calls the Middle East West Asia, so that's probably what she's referring to. The Middle West or Europe or America to build something. In reality, it's camouflage to deceive people that Zionism is invading Patagonia from end to end. Sebastian Salgado Esponte has fear. Rio Negro, Argentina. Okay, so that was the end of the report. He was like signing off. The thread escalated with more anecdotes, including a video of a hostile worker who stumbled onto a group of tourists in the forest with long-range radio comms gear and satellite phones. Yeah, and then it goes on to explain it. Yes, and then it goes on to explain the post that we already read. The core of this whole mess traces back to Plan Ondinia, a concept that Zionists dismissed outright as a baseless anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, as usual, yet one that keeps resurfacing with eerie persistence. The point isn't to prove it's real or fake in black and white terms. It's that, quote, things are conspiracies until they aren't, end quote. History is full of schemes denied, downplayed, or called myths right up until the evidence piles up and it's too late. When the land is already bought, the resources locked down, and the map redrawn. And then it goes on to show a graph, and it says a thumbnail comparison, Jewish farming in Palestine and Argentina, 1882 to 1900. And it says Ottoman Palestine between 1882 and 1900, there were 3,500 Jewish farmers who had purchased 29,000 acres. And then Argentina between 1891 and 1896, you had 6,700 Jewish farmers who had purchased 250,000 acres of farmland. Okay. Its historical roots go deep into the late 19th century when Theodor Herzl, the father of modern political Zionism, grappled with where a Jewish homeland could be established and exploding anti-Semitism amid explosive anti-Semitism in Europe. In his groundbreaking 1896 pamphlet, Der Judenstaat, the Jewish State, Herzl explicitly evaluated Argentina as a serious alternative to Palestine, highlighting its vast open lands, fertile soil, low population density, and immigration-friendly policies under Argentine governments. While Herzl ultimately pivoted to Palestine as the primary focus, the Argentine option wasn't fringe. It was seriously debated in early Zionist circles as a viable fallback or parallel path. That's absolutely true. I have seen all that myself. The journals, the conversations, the dialogue, that's all very real. And then here's a map of Jewish colonies in Palestine, in Argentina. Okay, so they show you that. This discussion translated into real documented action. Philanthropist Baron Maurice de Hirsch, this is the guy who I'm familiar with, founded the Jewish Colonization Association, JCA, in 1891 to fund agricultural settlements for Eastern European Jews fleeing pogroms. The JCA acquired massive tracts of land, eventually reaching over 600,000 hectares in Argentina alone, and established more than 20 colonies, primarily in the fertile Pampas provinces like Entre Rios, Santa Fe, Buenos Aires, La Pampa, and Corrientes. Let's see. These were described as humanitarian, and then they have maps and pictures and stuff of some of this stuff they're referencing. They were described as humanitarian efforts for refuge, self-sufficiency, and integration into Argentine society, with settlers becoming Jewish guachos, which is Spanish, I believe, for cowboys, through farming wheat, corn, flax, livestock, and later light industries. At peak in the 1920s, they supported tens of thousands of farmers on about 1.5 million acres across Argentina and Brazil, With strong Zionist cultural elements emerging, debates on Israel, Yiddish, theaters, synagogues. The modern version of Plan Indinia is a theory that alleges a covert Zionist Israeli scheme to conquer and declare a second Jewish state, specifically in southern Patagonia, Argentina, and Chile, emerged in the 1970s in Argentine far-right circles. In 1971, ultra-nationalist economist and professor Walter Beverage Allende popularized it through pamphlets and articles in magazines like Cabildo, claiming Zionists were secretly buying land to undermine Argentine sovereignty and establish Indinia, which is a mashup of Andes and Patagonia. Okay, that makes sense. The Andes and Patagonia. The Andes are the western mountains on the western coast of the Pacific. It gained traction during the 1979-1983 military dictatorship, where Jewish prisoners, including journalist Jacobo Timmerman, were allegedly tortured and grilled about IDF invasion plans for Patagonia. Timmerman later mocked the event in his memoir as proof of paranoid fantasy. But is it reality, or is this signature gaslighting? Mainstream historians and academics are suspiciously quick to label Plan Indinia as anti-Semitic propaganda with zero evidence of ongoing plots, but I think the evidence is beginning to get quite damning. Old theories refuse to die, and this one resurfaced in the 2010s over Israeli backpackers setting fires in Patagonia. In 2023, media scandals, and now 2025-2026, amid Malay's pro-Israel policies, massive land purchases by Zionist-linked figures, and fires that clear protected forests for development. The pattern is undeniable and overused. Deny it as conspiracy while acquisitions happen quietly. Laws get weakened, like the fire management law changes. We'll talk about that in a second. And the region shifts hands. When the smoke clears, no pun intended, people ask how it happened right under their noses. This is not about making a blanket accusation. It's about questioning what happens when conspiracies align with visible power moves. The questions get louder, and ignoring them doesn't make them go away. It makes it worse. Even today, people have tried to bring awareness to Plan Indinia, only to face swift backlash that labels it hate speech, while the underlying question lingers. While doing my own digging into these things, I came across the curious case of UK-based Islam Channel, a broadcaster reaching millions in Muslim communities. In February 2021, they aired a 1-hour documentary titled The Indinia Plan, boldly alleging that there is an active Zionist plot underway to establish a new Jewish state in Patagonia, spanning Argentina and Chile. The film didn't hold back, claiming reliable signs of this scheme in action: massive land acquisitions by Israeli-linked investors, waves of post-IDF backpackers scouting territories, and even suspicious companies with Star of David logos popping up in the region. It wove in historical trends from Herzl to present-day deals, framing it as a stealthy land grab disguised as tourism and investment. And then here's a screenshot. It says, but here's where the denial machine kicks in. By September 2023, UK regulator Ofcom slapped the channel with a £40,000 fine for serious and repeated breaches of broadcaster codes, deeming the doc anti-Semitic hate speech rooted in neo-Nazi tropes. The ruling blasted it for promoting harmful stereotypes without evidence, forcing an on-air apology from Islam Channel, who chalked it up to a mistake by new staff. Critics piled on, with groups like the ADL echoing that it's recycled propaganda designed to stir division. Yet in the same breath, the film spotlighted real elements like those eerie company signs in Patagonia that locals have photographed and shared for years, raising eyebrows about why such visuals exist if it's all just a myth. Isn't this always their playbook? Amplify the theory in alternative media, causing the Streisand effect, hitting the author with anti-Semitic labels and fines, and watch as the conversation gets shut down while the land buys, fires, and deals keep rolling. Things are conspiracies until the proof stares you in the face, and by then, it's often game over. And then there's a screenshot of an op-ed. During my research, I came across this heartbreaking article from a nun, Sister Milagros Juarez, written in an opinion piece for Diario Uno on June 18th, 2025. It's raw, almost prophetic in its tone, and it treats Plan Indinia as something that might be unfolding right now under Malay's watch. She calls it a reality. So this is a nun, apparently, who wrote this. She calls it a reality that endangers all South America, warning that a new Israel in Patagonia could turn neighbors into future Iran's or Syria's zones of imminent war. She frames Malay as a converso al Judaismo, convert to Judaism, ties with land grabs to cheap sales, direct Tel Aviv flights, and new social security packs favoring Jewish migrants while criticizing the timing amid global tensions. It's a cry from someone who sees the pattern as too real to ignore, calling on readers to recognize the peril before it's too late, before it's irreversible. The opinion piece exploded online with critics calling it inflammatory and defenders saying it finally voices what locals whisper. Either way, it captures a shift. What was once a conspiracy is now openly debated in mainstream Argentine media as a geopolitical threat. In the bombshell visual that went viral alongside it, Netanyahu at a 2025 meeting with Malay, intently studying a map centered on southern South America with Patagonia front and center, right around the time of new bilateral deals and Israel strikes on Iran. The photo, released without official explanation, sparked immediate frenzy, with people asking, coincidence or signal? This image captures the moment perfectly, with Netanyahu poring over the map while Malay looks on amid talks of military cooperation, resource access, and migration pacts that let Israelis tap Argentine social benefits. It's the kind of visual that makes conspiracy feel a lot less theoretical. Much like the current discourse in the U.S., this revival isn't fringe either. It's in newspapers, viral photos, and heated debates. When a nun writes about it with this emotional urgency and the president poses with Netanyahu over a Patagonia map, the denial gets harder to maintain. Things are conspiracies until they're not. And once the pieces are in place, it's often too late to stop what's coming. If the historical dots, media revivals, and heartbreaking warnings from voices like Sister Juarez aren't enough to make you pause, then look at the tangible signs popping up right on the ground in Patagonia. These kind of clues that theorists point to as proof of plan is in motion, hidden in plain sight as legitimate business. We're talking about companies with names that scream Southern expansion and logos brazenly featuring the Star of David, operating as consulting firms, investment developers, and constructors in a region ripe for resource grabs. Deny it all you want as coincidence, but when these outfits align with land buys, water deals, and wildfires that clear the way for development, the conspiracy starts looking like a lot like strategy. So here's one picture: Antarctica Constructora. That's definitely a Star of David. First up is Antarctica Constructora, whose roadside signs dot the snowy Patagonia landscape, their logo prominently featuring an interlocking Star of David. The name alone hints at ambitions extending far beyond Patagonia toward the frozen continent's claims, where Argentina, Chile, and others compete over resources like minerals and ice. But the star symbol ties it directly into Indian theories. These signs, photographed by locals and shared in threads for years, advertise construction services in a disputed frontier zone where infrastructure often precedes large-scale development. Skeptics say that it's just a family-run firm with peculiar symbolism, but theorists see it as a subtle nod to settlement or expansion, especially when fires open up land for new builds. Then there's Antarctica Fur SAS, with a logo that integrates the Star of David over stylized buildings, homes, in a sweeping curve, evoking real estate, housing projects, or urban development in the southern Antarctic sphere. The name screams geographic ambition, positioning the company for construction booms in Patagonia and potentially beyond, amid resource plays like mining, glamping, or private enclaves. These aren't household names or multinational giants. They're niche players whose aesthetics and operations fuel a narrative of quiet colonization through investment. Whether intentional fronts or just edgy branding, their visibility in Patagonia and amid escalating fires, budget cuts, and Zionist-linked influence makes the questions impossible to ignore. These images aren't just hidden in obscure corners. They're out in the open, photographed by passersby and shared in debates. The symbolism stares back. Why these designs here now? Deny it, dismiss it, but keep the ground shifting. The flames in Patagonia aren't just burning forests. They're illuminating a bigger picture that it's been unfolding over a century, one that people have called conspiracy for so long it's become a reflex to dismiss. But when you line up the pieces, including Herzl's own open consideration of Argentina as a homeland fallback, the real Jewish colonization efforts that followed, the 1970s explosion of the Indian narrative in far-right circles, the persistent pattern of Israeli-linked land acquisitions, the suspicious wildfires that clear protected land just as laws get gutted to allow redevelopment, the tycoons carving out private fiefdoms with private armies, The water deals handing rivers to Mekarot. The roadside signs and logos staring back with stars of David in a disputed frontier. The Netanyahu Malay map photo, and now a nun writing in a national paper that the myth looks a lot like reality. It's hard to keep calling it a coincidence. Malay's regime, much like his mentor Trump, is accelerationist. Malay has slammed on the gas pedal, slashing fire management budgets to the bone, repealing the 30 to 60 year post-fire land use bans, dissolving environmental funds, cozying up to Netanyahu, launching the Isaac Accords, and opening the door for migration pacts that let Jews homologate social benefits in Argentina. Meanwhile, the people on the ground, Mapuche families losing ancestral territories, Chubut locals fleeing ash-choked towns, Argentines watching their South get bought up cheap, pay the price with homes destroyed, livelihoods torched, and sovereignty eroded. The pattern is the same as it ever was: denied, downplayed, labeled anti-Semitic conspiracy until the land is fenced, the water diverted, the forest gone, and the new infrastructure is in place. Then it's no longer theory, but fact on the ground, and reversing it becomes nearly impossible. We've seen this movie before when it was called Palestine. Schemes dismissed as paranoia, while the groundwork is laid in silence, only for the curtain to rise when the stage is already set. Patagonia is not just wilderness or puffy coat tourism. It is one of the last great freshwater reserves on Earth, a mineral-rich frontier, a strategic southern edge. If we wait for the official admission or smoking gun, it will be too late. The fires are a warning siren. The signs are already hammered in. The question is no longer, is it happening? It's how much further will it go, and what are we going to do about it? Argentina's south is burning. The time to look away is over. It's a pretty well-written article for the most part. Now, there are a few clips I want to play, and then we'll wrap up. Here is a fire. So this is a clip that they include at the end, and this is just showing you like the fires moving through. Apparently, they're having a big drought this summer. It's summertime in Patagonia, so it's very dry there, and it's warm, and the fires are burning. Tens of thousands of acres of land. Okay. So here's one thing that they didn't include, and it could be because they published the article too early, like they published it before. Well, no, I don't think so. Because I'm pretty sure this Argentina land. Let me pull this up. Just bear with me for a second. I'm trying to pull up the exact clip. Okay, here it is. Okay, so this is a video clip from, I believe this is from December 9th. Yeah, so this is from December 9th. And here's Malay's like press secretary making an announcement in a press briefing. Like this is a bit like the White House press room. Okay, so this is obviously speaking Spanish. So I'm going to read it again. It says, as for the rural land, the purchase is freed up for private and foreigners. Also, the prohibition to change the productive activity of farmland for 30 to 60 years after a fire is eliminated. A law of Deputy Maximo Kirchner that directly attacks production. By the way, if y'all don't remember, do you remember, for those of you who watched the Book of Trump on Monday night, remember when we talked about Hugo Chavez and we watched the clips of him? And then remember when he went to Argentina and invested all that money in Argentina, and he was friends with the husband and wife who were the heads of Argentina. And then when the husband dies, the people who were like interviewing for the documentary said that only Hugo Chavez stood by the wife to the very end. Like everyone else basically abandoned the wife after the husband died. But Hugo Chavez was the one person who stayed with the wife after the funeral and like stood by her, right? That guy who died was Maximo Kirchner. Okay. So Maximo Kirchner apparently passed a law, says, so this guy in this video clip says Maximo Kirchner passed this law to attack productivity. It was like a communist attack on productivity. What the law says, as I understand it, is that foreigners were not allowed to purchase land, because remember, this is like some of the most coveted real estate in the world in terms of like natural beauty and like outdoorsmen, that sort of thing. Patagonia, it's a very famous part of the world. So foreigners couldn't buy rural land. Foreigners couldn't develop land. I believe that was another one. And then it said that when there was a forest fire, as there sometimes is in heavily forested areas like Patagonia, that the land could not be rezoned or developed for 30 to 60 years after a forest fire. All of that thrown out. So now not only are foreigners allowed to purchase land, and not just individuals, but more importantly, transnational corporations like BlackRock are allowed to come in and purchase large tracts of land, but also after a forest fire, the land can be immediately rezoned. So it's no longer just forest. That is typically known as agriculture. If it's not like a federally protected land, I know in America, it's zoned as A1 typically, which is agriculture. And A1 has all kinds of restrictions on what you can't build. You basically can't really do anything with A1 other than just farm it. You can farm it. It's basically it. And you can barely even build like a barn on it, right? You have to get special permission to like build a barn or build like something, but you have to prove, I believe, that whatever the structure is you're building is serving the purpose of farming, right? That's at least how it works in most of America. And so they repealed all of that at the beginning of December. And now all of a sudden we have massive wildfires all across the region. And the theory is now that we're going to see all this land bought up and this land is going to be rezoned. Let's see if we can find a few of these clips. Because a few of them I've seen several of them, but a few of them were pretty compelling. Okay, so here is just a picture of the fires. I mean, you can see how massive this fire. I mean, look how massive that fire is. That is a huge fire. Here's some more videos. Jesus, look at that. Again, remember, this is all very, very dry forest. And look how thick this forest is. Okay, so that's where the fires are happening. Chubut province, which is the one that we keep talking about. Okay, so here is allegedly the grenade that they were using. It's an Israeli-made grenade.
Esta situación es realmente peligrosa. Observen ustedes las llamaradas en estos momentos aquí a la vera de la Ruta Nacional 40.
We don't need to hear that. Evacuations in progress in Epillín, which is that lake we were just looking at earlier. Okay.
Patagonia, Argentina is in.
Okay, not that one. Okay, so allegedly this is a giant protest of 100,000 people calling for Argentina to expel all Israeli citizens from Argentina, from Patagonia. But there's a specific video that I'm looking for, so just bear with me for a second. This is the one. Well, let's watch this one first. This is from Sputnik. That's pretty crazy. I mean, that is. Okay, look at that tiny plane. Is that tiny plane going to drop water on that fire? I mean, how do you even fight something like that, you know? All right, so then this woman. Okay, so this woman, this is a woman being interviewed on local news, Vivo A24, and she says, "But what hurts the most in your heart and soul is when you see the dead animals. We are raising funds. I can't even talk about the anguish we feel. We live here. This place is paradise for us, and they burned our paradise, man. They left us. They ruined everything. And what's happening here is that they're trying to sell Patagonia to all the Jews. This has been known for a long time. Everyone here knows that this place is crawling with Israelis. They buy all the land, and no one does anything. And the only people stepping up are the ones who've lost everything. They left us alone. Okay, yeah. And so the reports are, like everywhere, is that they're just groups of young traveling Israelis. And the allegation out there is that these young travelers are actually active IDF soldiers who are going there to start these fires. And then once they start the fires, someone's going to come in and buy up the land. The last thing I'll present is that apparently there was this land survey that was conducted in 2025. The report was published in 2025. And what I have are the graphics, some of the graphics from that report on whether, and the survey was done to determine how many rare earth minerals were in the area. Okay. So we got to go to the mind map. You didn't think you were getting out of here without looking at mind map at least one time, guys, did you? And wait for it to load because it takes a second to load. And the image that I'm looking for is, stand by for processing, right here. What did I do with it? It was right here. I put it. I know I left it right here. So I'm waiting for this. This thing is just moving at snail speed. I left it right here by my Maduro dig. Don't you hate it when you misplace something and you can't quite locate it? I dragged it off the screen because it was getting in the way of everything, but I left it nearby so it would be easy to find. And it is man, that is frustrating. Why do I do it? Why do I do this to myself? Yeah, I threw it in here as I was doing something. I was working on something else, and I just came across it. And I said, "Those images are interesting. Let me throw them in there, and I'll come back to them later when I actually have time to dig on Patagonia." Well, if I can't find them, I'm just going to have to go find them on X. But basically, what they are is they're maps showing where all of the resources are, like where the rare earth minerals are. And the survey was released, I believe, sometime in the middle of 2025. Yeah, it's not. I don't know what happened to them. They may have. Well, they may have gotten. Anyway, let's just pull them up on X. I know they're on X. Bear with me for 1 second, and then we'll do rants and get out of here. This is becoming very anticlimactic. Patagonia Rare Earth Map Survey. Man, for some reason, this is it's just going super slow. I don't know if the internet's screwing up or what. Hopefully I'm still connected and y'all can still hear me, but the internet's just crawling right now. Absolutely crawling. All right, so here's X. Maybe if I stop sharing the screen on Miro, maybe that was slowing me down. And of course, it's not. These maps are not showing up. Maybe we might just have to punt on the maps, guys. I apologize. The internet is not liking me right now. But anyway, yeah. So there are maps out there that show lithium is it was like 5,000 tons of lithium. It was 500 tons of something else. And all these, and it's right there in this like around this Chubut area where these fires are all breaking out. So interesting stuff. We'll kind of have to stand by and wait and see what happens, like some more development. But at least the locals are aware of it and they're trying to better understand the problem. Yeah, so at least they're better trying to understand the problem. All right, well, let's go ahead and hit rants. And if more develops here, then we'll follow up and dig into it. Otherwise, we will. You know what? I wonder, was I smart enough to put it in that take? I did a take on this on Monday. I may have actually put that in the take. Let's look. Huh. And the internet seems to have frozen for me. This is crazy. Nope, I didn't post the maps. Anyway, all right, we're just gonna have to move on from that. That's fine. Okay. Well, actually, wait. There's one last thing we'll watch. This is Salgado, the same guy, Sebastian Salgado, being interviewed by Max Blumenthal on Gray Zone. I think this is probably worth watching.
We've seen from these soldiers in Patagonia is that they behave as if they didn't need to respect the laws of Argentina. And then they are very rude to people. They can walk into a supermarket and start eating food without paying, for example, because they know there won't be any local authority to tell them anything, because they have political backing behind them, to say the least. And several things have drawn attention in that regard. One is that we were in Patagonia this summer, where there were very important fires, very, very important in Patagonia, right on the trails where these Israeli soldiers walk. And part of the paradox is that fires always start in Patagonia near waterways. So President Milei changed the land law and the forest law so that any foreigner could buy land in Argentina right now. And he removed the forest law through which, if a part of a forest burned beforehand, it couldn't be sold for 20 years. So that prevented intentional fires from starting, because if someone had a piece of native forest, let's say fine, someone else could set it on fire and come and offer it much cheaper. When in reality, they keep the land, and it's still next to a waterway. So far, Oscar, there has been only one case in which a person has been found setting forest fires in Patagonia, and it was on the Chilean side, right? It was a forest of more than 15,000 hectares in the Torres del Paine National Park, and it was indeed an Israeli soldier. The soldier's name is Roder Singer. He acknowledged that he had deliberately set fire to the Torres del Paine National Park, but the Zionist lobby within the Chilean judiciary got them fined only 7,500 euros. Plus, in recent weeks, a long-standing theme has been confirmed. In Argentina, Israeli citizens will be able to have all the same rights as Argentine citizens and even collect a pension from the Argentine pension system, even if they've never worked here, and even if they don't even live in Argentina. In other words, the Argentine pension system will start supporting Israeli retirees. It's as crazy as you're hearing it.
Va a empezar a mantener a jubilados israelíes. Es así de desquiciado como lo estás escuchando.
Okay, I think the video is finished playing. People in the chat are saying that Down Detector is saying that Verizon's down across the country, and I do have Verizon internet, so hopefully I'm still connected and the stream is still going. Let's just go ahead and hit rants and wrap it up before anything else goes wrong. Hit the thumbs up, guys. Appreciate y'all being here despite Matt not being here. And hope everything is working out, is okay with Matt, but we'll get back on the same page with him next week. Sleep State, $1, different take on Greenland. And this is from, looks like there's a Substack article. And this is like a 14-minute video that's being linked here. So yeah, I appreciate that, Sleep State. I will listen to this and maybe come back with some feedback on it, and certainly will add it to my calculus. I think it's important to evaluate all the different perspectives on this. So I appreciate you sharing that. Artsy Joan, $10. Hey, Joan. Great show. Great solo show, Ghost. Thank you and God bless. Well, thank you, RC Joan. Appreciate you. All right, guys, hit the thumbs up, and I'm gonna go ahead and just shut it down, wrap it up before we lose connection to the internet. Y'all have a great day. We will see you 6 o'clock tonight. General Quast is launching a new show on Badlands about the space revolution, and his first guest is Chris Paul. He's gonna be interviewing Chris Paul. And I am very excited about this show. I think it's going to be awesome. General Quast will also be on Badlands tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock to join Ash and I on our show, The Choice, which is about the ministry of Jesus Christ through the popular TV show, The Chosen. We will be doing season 2, episode 1 tomorrow. So go watch season 2, episode 1, and join us at 11 a.m. Eastern for a conversation with Jim Quast. And keep watching Badlands and subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you are, welcome. We will see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.